We mush, chat. We mush. All right. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is going to be a little different. This is going to be a little different from what you guys typically see. We are doing a live reaction, if you will, to the models. We're going to be doing this tomorrow as well. Maybe not with Morgan, because Morgan's probably going to be finishing up everything else he needs to do before he chases.
When tomorrow?
It would be the same time.
Frankly, I'm probably going to be doing map study at this time tomorrow.
That is
because
if
Saturday's gonna be any kind of thing, then I gotta be on my stuff.
So Morgan's going to be chasing. He's going to be chasing both Friday and Saturday. He's also going to kind of be a spotter for us. Not exactly a chaser, because he won't provide footage like 24/7. But he will provide maybe a video or two or some live feeds every now and then when he can. But he's more than anything going to tell us what's going on his end and just kind of be a spotter for us. And that's going to be pretty helpful, especially with the type of days that we are expecting. What are we expecting exactly? Well, chat, I'm glad you guys asked. This entire stream is dedicated to us getting ready to react to the new suite of models, or really just the new suite of the HRRR, that is going to be telling us what's going on for Friday. And so, even though we have stuff like the Rap and the NAM that has gotten their takes on it, we're going to be looking at that while the HRRR runs. And we want the HRRR's opinion, mainly because the HRRR is one of the more consistent models out there. Let's be honest. So it's usually the HRRR, it's usually the Rap. Those are the two models that kind of look at it. And what better to figure out what's going to be happening on Friday before the videos than with our streams. So that'll be pretty cool. Oh, one thing I will say. What are you going to try?
I think I'm going to try and find a way to input my audio in a way that it won't pick up the clickety click.
You can always, well, I don't know. He's testing this live, everyone. He is currently looking at the screen share that is looking at my Streamlabs, and he's looking at the green
I'm
bar.
not. I'm in settings, and I'm looking at input sensitivity, which ain't much better.
It is what it is, honestly. They can hear my clickety clicks, and they're going to hear your clickety clicks. So, you know, it's good enough.
I'll just try not to be obnoxious with it. All right, continuing.
But yeah, we're going to be reacting to the HRRR. Now, what I will say, chat, what I will say is, we will, at least from now on, in my opinion, I think it's going to be pretty cool with us doing it. The night before a significant event, so such as tomorrow night, we will actually be doing the same exact thing we are doing live right now. All right, from now onwards, for any major event that is looking to be 10 sig style, a tornado threat, all the way up to higher than that.
Reasonable.
That would be reasonable.
I think we will have one of these days coming up that is higher than that.
More than likely, yes. I mean, we'll get into those takes that you and I have on that day when we get there. But from more than likely 10 sig events and onwards, we'll likely have the night before dedicated to where we just react to the models as they come out, the 0Z suite. And we'll kind of go over what the models are saying, what has changed, all sorts of little stuff like that, yada, yada, yada. But what we will also do is the day before that, so 2 days prior, we will have a live stream that actually is dedicated to members only, so that they get to see the newest, the very beginning of the high resolution models, the suite, as it comes out. So that way you're reacting to the models and what could potentially be happening. the same as I am. Because, to be honest with you, all right, and I'm not sure if I'm speaking for Morgan, but me personally, I haven't been this excited and interested in reacting to the HRRR and the rap as much as I have been in, say, a couple of years. So it's pretty gnarly. And yes, by the way, I know the stream keeps freezing and stuff like that. Yes, chat. We are the response. The fix is in the mail. We've ordered it. We're getting better Wi-Fi and stuff like that. Yeah, I know this stuff happens. It's coming in. It's gonna get fixed. I promise y'all. All right. Slowly but surely.
Solutions are near.
Solutions are near. True facts. So, but yes. Josh B with the Weather Watcher, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing. That's what we're gonna be doing here on the channel. And yeah. So let's start out the stream by reacting to the 21Z rap. The 21Z rap, the rap does weird stuff. All right. Let me tell you what. The rap does cool stuff, the rap does weird stuff, but the rap is one of the more consistent models that we have. So let's take a look at the rap, and let's kind of just look at the general gist of what it's saying. First things first, the 500 millibar wind shear, something that we typically look at a lot when it comes to our severe weather. The one thing that is of main interest that I seem to look at with the rap is that the trend with this 500 millibar trough, this first trough that moves on through tonight, is a lot weaker than was anticipated. If we actually go to the main 21Z run here, all right, and we go to the compare model, or the model trend loop, I should say, the model trend loop, you can actually take a look and see for this time here, which is 21Z, so that is 4 p.m. Central, all right? Notice how we have some reds that are in this trough here, this weaker trough, that dips on through and pushes off into portions of Texarkana. But as this continues to get later and later on, so this model run came out on, this would be Tuesday, okay? This would be a Tuesday morning to be exact. As we play this on through into Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, notice how the colors start to get weaker and weaker. Not as deeper reds in some of these areas. And so therefore, we do indeed have a weaker trough that moves on through. Now, why is this important? All right. Well, the main reason why this is important is because if you don't have as strong of upper level wind shear here at the 500 millibar level, that will eventually, or not eventually, it will actually impact your bulk shear. Your bulk shear is going to absolutely kind of tank, if you will. What is bulk shear? Well, very good question. If we go over to bulk shear here, which is over here on the wrap as well, bulk shear is basically the difference between the winds at the surface and the winds 6 kilometers above ground level. The reason why that is important is because if you have a stronger wind differential with height, that actually can favor sustainment of thunderstorms and supercells. But if it's weaker, then the storms that try to form won't be as significant, and in turn, the domino effect is they won't be able to take advantage of the environment that's out in front of it. So, if you have a weaker trough, that means weaker storms, which means not as much moisture is taken up within the storms. And that can trickle down.
I was going to get to that part, actually. The bigger thing to understand with this particular storm setup that we've had today versus what we're going to have in the next few days is if the trough in this instance is weaker, the associated fronts and storms moving with it are also going to be weaker. Hence, they'll wipe out less moisture, And that's what we're really going to be looking for in the next few days. And that's going to be a very important detail. Our main concern right now, as we've seen short run or short range model variants, excuse me, in the limited amount of it that we have, has been the moisture content and how far north the moisture gets. There's been a few different outputs on some different models. Some models run dry, some models run a little bit more moist. Damn 3 kilometer. But what we've seen, especially from the wrap, and Nate will get into this more momentarily, wrap ran a little bit drier than some other model solutions, though that may not end up impacting the situation as much as it would look like on face value, because there's a lot of different things to consider with different model variants, as well as what actually will come true as we get later on in more model suites. Because something else to consider is some models throughout their time of throughout different suites that they've run have gotten more and more and more moist. One of those is the operational 12-kilometer NAM, the lower res one, and I know we don't really use that for judgments, but one thing to note with that is just the trend that it started drier, weakened the trough. The trough that's moving through is actually putting storms farther south than they have been otherwise, or had been otherwise forecasted. Excuse me. So we saw the slight risk today that was in parts of Oklahoma as well, but storms haven't really formed up there. They've been south of the Texas-Oklahoma border, south of that Red River region, and thus our moisture is staying a little bit more intact up there. The trough and the associated front moving through is still going to take some of it with it, but fewer storms, lower trough, a weaker strength of trough, and overall just watching the moisture rebound in the next few days is going to be very important. And certainly you cannot take one run of a model. In this instance, I'm thinking about the wrap. You cannot take one model of that, see that it's dry, and go, event's over. Which is certainly the opposite of what Weather Twitter has been doing lately with it. I just want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
It's not been a thing.
Yeah. So, and don't, here's the other thing here, chat, as well. To piggyback, but also add, is a lot of these long-range models also sometimes create a lot of, create an over-exaggeration when it comes to the northern extent into which that moisture also can go up further north. Usually, with models, over time, as you get closer and closer to an event, the moisture actually starts to recede further south, because it ends up being the case to where the low pressure doesn't actually end up becoming as progressive. It actually kind of slows down just a little bit more. And so, in doing so, that usually means that because the storm is a little bit behind in a couple of stages, the moisture actually ends up being a little bit further down, if you will. It becomes a little bit further south, or it sits a little bit further south. So I'll show you what I mean here by the GFS. We'll take a look at the trend of the GFS for Friday, if you will. Because as I said, if the storms tonight don't use as much moisture, then that moisture will just be put into good use into, say, Thursday and eventually even Friday as well. But we'll take a look at the trend. Notice all of these greens here that are out in the open warm sector here, all right? A lot of these greens end up actually going down a little bit further south, or end up not being as strong, at least in previous runs. It looks like the GFS actually doesn't run that far back, so that's pretty cool. But a lot of what's happened here with the GFS is the moisture actually recedes a bit further south into regards of where the main bulk of it is. And so you can actually kind of see just a little bit, there is some bulk of moisture right here that ends up going down further and further south. And you'll actually see that being the case here, to where the bulk of it ends up, it kind of stays the same a little bit. But I do remember earlier on last week, there were some models that had all of this bulk all the way up here into portions of Wisconsin and Michigan. And that was kind of crazy in itself. Like, they was predicting that type of moisture down here all the way up into portions of Minnesota, Iowa, and Michigan. And simply that just hasn't been the case. It's just been going further and further to the south. So something interesting to note if you're using long range models, especially the GFS. Usually all that stuff ends up coming down a little bit further south, and the more intense activity ends up being for a bit further south as well. So just something to note with that. Something to note. But we'll go back to the wrap here, because the wrap, once again, is a pretty good model here for short range activity. And we'll take a look specifically at, say, let's once again go into the 500 millibar wind shear here, and let's just do the regular forecast loop. So we mentioned here at the start of us looking at the wrap, our 500 millibar shortwave trough that's moving on through tonight has weakened. All right, the wind shear aloft for this severe weather that's supposed to be happening tonight has weakened a bit. All right, which means that the moisture content that is going to be available for some of these thunderstorms here tonight is not going to be used as much as we previously thought, which means a lot of the moisture that isn't going to be used tonight is just going to sit around for the storms that could form tomorrow, or even further on, storms that could form on Friday. Let's continue on with our 500 millibar wind shear here. And the interesting thing here, at least in my opinion, is first off, how intense our upper level low is. I mean, you can clearly see our low here with our trough that it digs on through. Remember, at the end of where our jet stream is, that's where there's going to be a lot of diffluence aloft, which means the atmosphere is going to create a lot of gaps. It's going to create a lot of gaps in the atmosphere that needs to be filled up with air from somewhere. And usually that comes from the ground and starts to move its way up. And so you typically look for the front part of the jet stream in order to figure out where those gaps are going to be at, if you will. And everywhere right in this area seems to be kind of the general vicinity to where those gaps are going to be at. You can kind of notice here, at least with southern extent, this is where the upper level trough starts to kind of veer out and become weaker and weaker with a gradient. And so we're watching this area here in particular for some strong severe weather to potentially try and form. We're talking about portions of Missouri, we're talking about Iowa, we're talking about Illinois, more than likely northern portions of Arkansas heading into western Tennessee and western Kentucky. And we could potentially see some storms that even go outside of the areas that I called as well. But mainly it's those areas that I'm talking about as of right now. Now, the other thing that I want to mention here, and this is something that I think is pretty cool with the wrap, is that the wrap actually shows that the trough at peak intensity is all the way over here near Arizona and New Mexico. As you start to move off towards the north and east with our trough actually begins to go through its weakening phase of occlusion. All right. Yes, large low pressure systems and large troughs do actually go through occlusion as well. And usually when that happens, that's when you can start to have a broadening of the wind field, which you'll see here with the 850 millibar wind shear here in a bit. You see a broadening of the wind field, and you also see a general weakening as well. So you notice here, we have some strong winds heading into the afternoon. 20Z is around 3 p.m. Central. You head into 21, 22, 23Z. Notice our yellows is starting to disappear. It is starting to weaken more and more, which means our upper level wind shear is actually starting to deteriorate as you go into the nighttime hours. So sustainment of some storms, though it still will be there, won't actually be as strong as it once was, which means that could impact some ventilation with a lot of these storms that could form. So definitely something to note as well. And then the other thing to note is right on the rear of our first low pressure system that's moving on through for Friday, our second trough is starting to build here. You can start to see our new low pressure system is starting to build with this bulk of stronger wind shear here towards the back near California, Baja California, portions of New Mexico. This is all starting to build. This is all starting to build as our new low pressure system will begin to try and form and start to push off into portions of the deep south. So this is definitely something that we're going to have to continue to watch and monitor how strong this actually gets on its approach, because right now it's looking at this stage here of Friday night that it's in the building phase. It's in the beginning phases of forming into a low pressure system. So something to watch, something to note as that continues to transition into our newer models that begin to form and become available to us tomorrow night.
The other thing to consider with that as well is both the formation and that trough and the deepening of it, and how much time it has to organize and get itself together is going to have a lot to do with what we actually see on Saturday. So because of that thing coming in, the first trough that's going to be moving through our area on Friday is going to be lifting its associated fronts to the north and east with it. What's holding the cold front behind it and back behind those areas of Mississippi and Alabama and the Mississippi River Valley that we're going to be watching for severe weather on Saturday is that second trough, that second low pressure that's supposed to form. That's going to bring our moisture back up into the area, perhaps into the upper 60s for dew points on Saturday. And that's what we're going to be looking for to see how much moisture we can get into the area and how strong our wind shear can get to some ridiculous levels here, folks. So we're going to be keeping track of that. And Friday's progression will have lots to do with how Saturday ends up going. So whilst we're also covering Friday's severe weather events, what's actually happening with storms, probably most likely going to be most concentrated area of storms in the upper Mississippi River Valley towards the Ohio River Valley, Missouri, Illinois, possibly some Arkansas storms as well. We are going to want to keep track of that storm system. And did you hear that?
I did.
living on a very busy road, not great. But we are going to be wanting to pay attention to the progression of the fronts and the trough on Friday as we go into Saturday, because we're going to get Saturday started very bright and early. And honestly, the features that we see towards 10, 11, midnight on Friday into Saturday are going to be probably pretty crucial towards looking towards our forecast on Saturday morning, which we could be seeing storms as early as Saturday morning. That's
absolutely
something to consider as well.
That's honestly something that we talked about a little bit with the Euro model this morning on our video. We talked about how the evolution of what happens on Friday into Saturday could potentially make or break the style of event that you can have on Saturday. If you have storms that sit there in the morning and sit over the general environment, that could take up a lot of your moisture and a lot of your energy, and boom, you have a pretty suppressed environment compared to what you had on the models. And that's night and day. I mean, we're talking right now with a lot of these models. We've been seeing some really well above average wind shear that is being forecasted for a typical.
Above average is shortchanging it.
Yeah, it really is
unbelievable. Like, it's been a little variable and inconsistent with the exact numbers, but 60, 65, 79, 850 millibar jet, you do not see that very frequently at all.
Absolutely
and
not.
Pair that with the surface-based southerlies to maybe even southeasterlies that we're going to get. That's going to bring in a lot of moisture into the area, and that combination, never good. But I'm sure we'll get more into that later on.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, and even further with the 500 millibar wind shear. All right, I would say typically around 65 to 70 knots of upper level wind shear, maybe a little bit less than that, around 500 millibars. That's kind of average. that's kind of around average for most severe weather events. But now this is some stronger wind shear that we're looking at, especially in the upper levels. You can see here on the ticker for just or at the cursor here for just Friday's event. We have some upper level wind shear values of 130 knots at the core of the jet stream. All right, that's pretty strong. That's pretty strong for just a low pressure system in general. And the fact that we were seeing stuff that were around that, if not a little bit stronger for Saturday, I mean, that definitely is a sign to show that this is going to be a pretty substantial event here, even just straight up for Friday.
Yes, and Andrew says some weather enthusiast YouTubers are saying this model on screen is going to be a derecho. Friday's a very interesting situation. So Friday, have you gotten into the risk yet? I've been clicking away. I don't know
No,
if you've.
I'm right now.
So if you wanna maybe pull that up and get your marker handy dandy pen tool out.
We'll go with the wrap.
What you'll be able to see for Friday into the evening is you're going to see a few different distinct storm modes come into play. So the first one is going to be on the northern and northeastern side of the low pressure. Very, very forced thunderstorm activity associated with this very strong jet max that we're going to be getting out of the south, pumping into the storm as it occludes to the north and east. These very forced storms are probably going to be capable of producing some very significant damaging winds. Really not so much a tornado threat with these, though. And that's going to go for storms in the Iowa, Illinois, Missouri region, probably down to about just to the north of St. Louis, I would say, is where you can probably credit most of the wind threat or most of the individually Let me try that again. Most of the only like singular severe hazard storm mode on Friday. So that's probably going to be damaging winds, perhaps some smaller instances of hail, but I don't expect that too much. But super cool air up there could do something like that. The farther south you get, the more tornadic it is going to become a possibility for. So then you're going to have a secondary area between that area just north of St. Louis that I mentioned, and then south of it towards the Missouri boot heel. That's probably going to also be forced, but a little bit less so since it's not on the northeastern side of the low pressure. It's going to be not getting so much vorticity from the front dragging down towards the south. So that area is going to be looking at a mixed mode of perhaps some damaging wind gusts as well as embedded tornadoes with a line that is not going to be totally forced beyond the point of embedded supercellular structures. But south of that, into the Missouri boot heel into northeastern Arkansas is where we are getting in a very interesting situation. Model soundings from that area across all different models are depicting perhaps a very significant environment for perhaps some strong damaging winds, maybe a few instances of large hail, but also some tornadoes as well. That would be perhaps a more individual storm mode, a more supercellular storm mode. Models have indicated with some soundings that there might be a little inversion above the surface at about 850 millibars or 700 millibars. And what we mean when we talk about an inversion like that is a little increase in the temperature in that region to provide some what we call capping inhibition. So what we're going to be looking for with that is perhaps that's going to mitigate some of the extra activity from forming like that forced line of thunderstorms that's Nate showing on your screen right now that would be impacting the eastern Missouri area, and instead getting a more single-celled supercellular mode that would be capable of producing more strong tornadoes on a more tornadoes on a more frequent basis than perhaps say a line segment would be able to.
Right. And the big thing here as well, beyond that, is that even if you don't have stuff that could form out in front of the line or stuff that can get by itself too, this environment could absolutely have supercells that are embedded within the line as well in that part of the risk. Yes, Morgan.
The HRRR is running. Just thought you should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main reason why we are streaming is here. We'll look at this here real quickly. but I just think it's definitely something that we should note. The HRRR is running, ladies and gentlemen. It is running. You know what I kind of want to do, chat? I'm going to do a cool thing. You ready, chat? We're going to have that be locked. And then we are going to have... Let's see. Does this work for... Can I do this for, like, all the stuff? I'm just only going to do it for, like, the first 48 hours. Okay. So watch this, chat. We're going to do some cool stuff here for you all. We're going to edit this to where we can see the hours. I know, it's covering the screen. I'm sorry.
Will Hutton, the HRRR hasn't run yet. It's running, and it hasn't gotten in range with the 18Z run that we're actually able to see anything with storms. So patience, but once we... Nate, what are you doing?
I'm showing the hours.
Once we have a little bit of a better idea of the... not a better idea. Jeez. Once we get into range, because the HRRR in its 4 times a day runs at 0Z, 6Z, 12Z, 18Z, runs out 48 hours. So at that point, we can see 2 days in advance, and that's what we're going to be looking for tonight. That's why we're here.
Look, see chat.
Nerd out.
Ta-da. I did it. So now you guys are able to see when it fully runs. All right? That's the whole reason I put it up there. The whole reason.
Nice.
You know, you guys saw the thumbnail, right? It had the it had a loading bar on it. All right? This is the same premise. All right? It's basically a loading bar. Except it just shows you how many frames are loaded. And yeah. So, but anyways, that's the reason why we're live right now, is we are currently going to be reacting to what the HRRR prints live, because it will be able to tell 48 hours out in advance the general idea of what could happen. All right? Not exactly, because that's not what models do. God, models can sometimes suck, but sometimes the models do work really well. And that's just, it's being able to decipher, it's being able to try and understand. It's also being able to try and be aware of what the models could be saying. So that way, people can use the correct wording on what could potentially be happening. So,
decoding for effective communication. One of my favorite things with this stuff.
Yep. That is absolutely correct. So, anyways, that's what we have there with the HRRR. We'll go back to the wrap. There we go. The wrap. So,
just to address, I'm reading chat here, just to address the elephant of the room, is there any fail modes for Friday or Saturday? I'm going to let you take that because I need to do some writing.
That's fine.
Short answer is yes.
There is a lot less fail modes for Saturday than there is Friday. Let's get that straight.
That's also a short answer. Yes.
Saturday. We'll get to Saturday in a bit on what I think could potentially happen. You know, could be happening. But let's just get it out of the way first, all right? Saturday, there are a lot less things that could go wrong than Friday. And that's kind of the reason why looking at the HRRR is so important here, getting this new 0Z suite in. That is really important to try and figure out what could potentially be the fail modes under a more high-resolution microscope, if you will. So, let's get into the fail modes more or less for Friday first, and then Saturday we'll kind of go into more of what I think there's only one real fail mode, but that's just based off of the fact that we have some low-resolution models looking into it, and I am not trusting the NAM 3 kilometer with anything, period. You're not gonna get me to look at the NAM 3 kilometer for Friday. You're not gonna get me to look at the NAM 3 kilometer for Saturday. Not
But
anything,
why not?
because listen, all right, the NAM 3 kilometer, all right, is genuinely one of the worst models to look at for just yes, all right.
Just
It's a high
clearly you haven't seen.
resolution, highly flawed model. That's what it is. All right. And so it just no. I
Have
will
you
look
not?
at it for memes. I will look at it for memes. I
Have
will
you
not
not
look
seen
at
the
it for
greatest? Have you not seen the greatest soundings of all time?
I have. And you know, once upon a time the NAM 3 kilometer actually was a great model to look at. I used that
Well,
extensively with the HRRR during the Easter event of 2020, and that thing hit. All right.
y'all remember what I said earlier in the stream about moisture and dew points and moisture return being forecasted. Um, very, very important when it comes to severe weather because thunderstorms don't happen without moisture. The NAM 3 kilometer, I think last I checked, is 3 or 4 degrees more moist than any other model run, unless you want to count something like the UK Met, which has also been on gas the last few days.
And you know, 3 or 4 degrees may not sound all that, big of a difference. It really is in the world of weather. Those 3 or 4 degrees can really make up a lot. And
You just got paid to show the model run you hate the most. The people want it.
the people are gonna make me want to cry. That's what they're gonna want me to. Ah! Well, first off, before I get to that, I want to shout out real quickly to Freedom for becoming a member. I appreciate that. I'll have to go back in time to figure out what specifically you became, but I do appreciate your support.
I'll see if I can go look.
Spout Spotter. There we go. I got it. Got it. Freedom with the
Hey.
Spout Spotter. Really do appreciate you becoming a member. Evelyn with the 39 months says this is going to get interesting on Saturday. Yeah, I do absolutely agree. And then Pyro with the absolute insane amount of being a weather watcher. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Will Hutton with the 35 months as well. Thank you so much. April will be 3 years. Can't wait for it to be another severe weather day. Yeah, it always happens, but it's always some real interesting stuff that happens here, especially on the channel. I appreciate you being here for almost 3 years. Absolutely crazy.
Man, I've known you for almost 5 years. That's insane.
Yep. Yep.
That hurts.
Ugh. We are becoming unks on the weather.
Thankfully, I don't have a bowl cut
YouTube.
anymore like I did.
That is true. Oh boy. The Pyro with the 5 says show us the NAM 3 kilometer. Alright, we'll show you the NAM 3 kilometer once we're done talking about the fail modes on Friday, because it's just you'll see why I absolutely cannot take it seriously. But thank you so much once again for the 5. Hunter with the 5, thank you so much, really do appreciate it. Says I'm headed out of town on the east side of Missouri for 4 days. What is going to happen on Friday? So you're going to be at the east side of Missouri for 4 days on Friday, I guess, or you're going to be out of town on Friday? Either or, east side of Missouri, it really depends upon where you're at. If you're like south of St. Louis, near like the Farmington, Cape Girardeau areas, you guys could potentially see your highest risk of tornadoes down there. But if you're like north of St. Louis, it probably would be more of a strong damaging wind risk more than anything with that. But the good news about Friday is we're going to be able to see more high resolution models come in at the end of the run. You know, I'm just going to actually duplicate. I'm going to duplicate the pivotal run here. Duplicate the HRRR. So there we go. We're 15 hours into the HRRR run that we want to see. So we still gotta wait, but we'll get there. But yeah, more you're gonna be out of town at east side. Gotcha. So yeah, it fully depends upon where you are, but we'll get into specifically where some of these areas could be here in just a very brief second. I want to take a look here real quickly. I mentioned earlier about how our low pressure system was weakening as you go into the late night hours on Friday. You go in from the afternoon to the evening. Take a look at this here, guys. All right. Low level jet absolutely starts ramping up pretty significantly here Friday morning. This is 5Z, which is midnight on Thursday heading into Friday. And you can see our low level jet really starts to ramp up. I mean, take a look at this here down in portions of Texas and Oklahoma. Down here is going to be a fire risk. We'll actually show you guys real quickly. There is absolutely a fire risk heading into Friday. Today there's a fire risk. Huh?
The news station, it's become protocol for us the next few days, really through the end of this week, to talk about the fact that really, really dry spring-like conditions mixed with 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts is not good.
Yeah.
No burning, no sparks, no nothing.
Yeah, there is a pretty large area here to where fire weather is definitely possible. Definitely possible. So we're watching that very closely, watching that like a hawk, if we will. And really, that'll continue all the way further into Saturday as well. I mean, we could take a look here over the span of the next 4 days. The next 4 days, this is today, today's risk for fire weather. There's tomorrow. This is Friday. And then this is Saturday. This is a pretty sustained risk for some fire weather that is going to be evident across much of the southern plains. So definitely something to watch out with that. And you can see as we go into Friday afternoon and Friday evening, our low-level jet actually starts to increase down here near the surface. Now, if the upper-level winds are weakening, but our lower-level winds are strengthening, how could that be the case? And the answer is pretty interesting, all right? In the process of occlusion with low-pressure systems, all right, usually you typically see a lot of strong winds aloft, but weaker winds at the surface. And in order to offset the two, it naturally wants to balance. So the lower level winds begin to increase to try and get to the same stage into which the upper level winds were. And we were seeing a lot of these yellows aloft, if you guys remember correctly. And so now the storm naturally wants to add the yellows as well. It also goes to show that as you head into the overnight hours, the low-level jet naturally increases too. So you have stronger low-level jet winds, but you also have widespread low-level jet winds as well. And specifically out in front over here to where the winds are coming from the south, moving to the north, that is where you are going to want to watch out. Maybe even areas that are a little bit more from the southwest as well. That's where you're going to want to watch out for the potential of your sustained supercells that could form. Because if storms form in that environment, they more than likely will have an abundance of strong upper level wind shear as well as strong lower level wind shear, hence the low level jet. So we'll look at that. We'll go into our dew points here. We'll actually zoom in here for our dew points. Mark Aldridge with the Weather Watcher, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And then James Taylor with the 10, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that as well. It says, remember, chat, we got to share this with share this information with as many people as possible. Share the live stream on social media and all messaging apps. Hit that thumbs up button down below. I appreciate that, James. Yeah, absolutely. What that does is that helps us get onto the algorithm, helps us get this out to people who could potentially be impacted by these storms. So it'd be greatly appreciated if you did what the super chat said, and I appreciate the $10 super chat, James. It really does mean a lot. It does help support the channel. All right, we're on the dew points now, and you can see here our moisture is kind of sitting over much of the deep south at the moment here, late Thursday afternoon into the early evening hours. It starts to really race off towards the north, and look at this here. We're talking Friday early afternoon. We have our dry line set up that's back over here, and then we have our very moist atmosphere that's out in front of it. Dew points in upwards of the mid 50s to even the low 60s. We typically would want a lot more of these blues in some of these widespread areas, but notice here how you have a higher concentrated area of moisture sitting down here into southeastern portions of Missouri, as well as into portions of southern Illinois as well. It also extends down further south into northeastern Arkansas. Depending upon what the HRRR says, all right, we could be seeing some of these dew points, these higher dew points, into some of these other areas as well. Hence the reason why we are waiting for that to finish up, which, as you can see here right now, we're 19 hours in. It takes a total of 48 hours for the model to complete. Not 48 hours as in wait time, but the model goes 48 hours in advance within this suite, which does take us to the same time into which this wrap model ends. And so that's definitely something to note here as well. And look at this here, guys, as well. Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening, these dew points also start to race off towards the north here. We're talking around 23Z to 0Z. That's around 6 to 7 central. Notice how these more humid, the more humid climate starts to really race off towards the north, and we start to see a little bit more moisture sitting along our dry line here. So this is definitely one thing that I will really be paying close attention to with the models, because if we start to see more moisture here sitting along the dry line, we absolutely could see a whole lot more severe weather. We absolutely could. So we'll just have to see how things kind of materialize, especially as we create our video tomorrow morning, which will be out at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. So don't miss that. Hit notifications if you haven't already. But if you were to hope for no thunderstorms, you would want to see a lot more of these light greens and a lot of these other areas. Take these dark greens, take these blues, just, get it out of here, get some of these light greens, put that in there instead, and we'll be having not as big of a severe risk, at least for the southern extent. But if you take a look to the north here, all right, we mentioned the more strong damaging wind event heading into portions of Iowa. Up here, our dew points, there isn't really a whole lot of big hefty dew points that you get, at least not as widespread hefty dew points as you go further north of Quincy, for instance. And so, because you have the lack of moisture, really what's running this event is a little bit of buoyancy and a lot of wind. A lot of wind. And that wind is really going to be pretty widespread in some of these areas. We'll go back to the reflectivity here to show you guys. Once we get into the late afternoon, early evening hours here for Friday, you get some pretty strong banding, if you will. Pretty strong banding that moves off into portions of Iowa. And that'll continue to march its way across, heading towards southern Minnesota eventually, as well as into northwestern portions of Illinois. So really, it's just anywhere that's kind of north of St. Louis or north of Quincy really is going to be seeing a lot of that strong damaging winds, at least your main threat being the strong damaging wind potential. But then as soon as you start to head a little bit further down towards the south, it starts to kind of transition a little bit more, because you start to get a lot higher dew points, a lot more moisture in the area. And the other thing too is, we're going to show you guys here something called storm relative helicity. Now, what that is that's basically wind shear, lower level wind shear that is favorable for tornadoes. All right. There's a difference between strong low level wind shear and wind shear that is favorable for tornadoes. The big key difference here is how the wind veers with height. All right. Can it veer with height in a constructive manner for thunderstorms so that way they may be able to evolve into the next step of the process, which would eventually be producing tornadoes. All right. So we'll move on through here. Friday, okay, heading into Friday afternoon, you start to see you do have some veering with height over here in the portions of Iowa, but you do not have the veering with height that you have over here in the portions of eastern Missouri and northeastern Arkansas. All right, you absolutely do have some good veering over here into some of these areas in the Ozarks. And because of that, this is where, in my opinion, is going to be the main corridor for your strong tornadoes to exist if storms were able to form and sustain in this environment. Keyword is if, all right? If storms were able to form or sustain in this environment, the highest ceiling would be localized over in this area that I have circled. So, definitely a really interesting thing for me to look out for in some of these upcoming videos. Can this change? Can this weaken? Can this strengthen? All sorts of stuff here that I'll be focusing on. We'll go back over here to this stretch. Zoom in just a little bit more. Can I tell you what to expect in Ohio? Ohio is going to be seeing their stuff more on Saturday, but we don't exactly have the high resolution models in for Ohio quite yet. More than likely, though, we would probably see some damaging winds up in your part of town. Virginia is not going to be in the main part of the event. Any thoughts for Sunday's severe risk? The further north you go, the more of a damaging wind threat you're going to get. Actually, more than anything, I think Saturday, the transition from Saturday night into Sunday morning is going to be a bit more of a damaging wind risk. A lot of strong damaging winds that will be pretty widespread past midnight Saturday into Sunday. So we'll definitely have to watch out for that. But I do think some areas in and along the line could probably have a few tornadoes. It's just where specifically is kind of the big question mark that we have right now, because everything is just all over the place. It basically is, we're waiting for the domino effect for Saturday's event. So if we look at our graphics here for severe weather, first off, the risk for severe weather here tonight, you can see we do have a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale for portions of Texarkana and eastern Texas. Okay. We do have a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale for portions of the deep south and the southeast. And then we have our risk for Friday. All right. Now, what happens on Friday here, especially with our 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale in the orange, all right, that will eventually impact what happens on Saturday, which is our risk for severe weather here, that it's an extended outlook, if you will. That also has a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. Honestly, could be upgraded to a 4 out of 5. And I'm not going to say the other thing of what I think is going to happen quite yet. I think I'll save that for tomorrow night. I think I'll save that for tomorrow night when the HRRR and the wrap comes out.
Wait.
We're waiting. But what happens on Saturday, all right, so once again, you can see risk for severe weather extends all the way up into portions of Lake Erie. That moves over into Sunday. And so there's a lot of domino effects. There's a lot of dominoes that need to fall in order for us to get to Sunday. And it's hard for us specifically to say what and where can be, happening on Sunday. That's
Yeah,
that's
just too far. We're you said we're waiting for those dominoes to fall. The first one hasn't fallen yet. This trough isn't out of the picture yet. This first one. So
yeah. Yeah.
one thing, then another thing, then another thing, then another thing.
Listen.
No, chat. We are not saying that.
I'm not saying it right now. I'm thinking it, but there is still one major question that I need answered. There is still one major question that I need answered before I even say anything about that. So we're getting there. We're figuring it out. But once those models come out tomorrow night, the HRRR and the wrap, the 21Z wrap, the 0Z HRRR, heck, you probably could even get away, honestly, with the 18Z HRRR. You possibly, the 18Z HRRR and the 15Z wrap, you could get away with it.
You'll have round one in view at that point. That first initial band of supercells that's supposed to move north with confluence, you'll have that in view.
Yeah.
Saturday's going to be
Saturday's very interesting. Let's just get that straight. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on Sunday. A lot of wind for the most part. It's just, what else can there be besides wind is a little bit difficult to say. HRRR, by the way, here is
30 in or so.
29 in.
Almost.
So we are now 29 hours in. Once we get to hour 40 would probably be. Yeah, hour 40 would probably be the hour that we're looking at to see what happens with this event. Still waiting on your NAM 3K? All right. We'll look at the NAM 3K.
Today, Junior.
Yeah. Pyro with the 2, I appreciate you. Thank you much. Could the risk get upgraded to level 4 for Friday? It is definitely possible, but I think there needs to be a little bit more consistency to come out with the risk in southeastern Missouri and northeastern Arkansas first. If there's going to be any 4 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, it's going to be in this area right here. If there's going to be any 4 out of 5, it's going to be there. But I think there needs to be a lot more consistency. And I think there needs to be a little bit more. Well, we'll see what the HRRR says. I've got a feeling that the HRRR is going to give us a couple of answers. Maybe not all the answers, but a couple of answers. So let's take a look at the NAM 3 kilometer and why I hate it so much. Because chat wants me to look at the model that is the bane of my existence, and
make sure you use that compare models tool with your dew points.
Oh my goodness. I just
Eat breaths. It's okay.
I know. But it's just, so for reference here, chat, this is 18Z
Maybe
on
not
Friday.
True, but it's okay.
this is 18Z on Friday. And this is hour 48 on the 18Z run. We're just going to take a look at the compare model loop and show you how ridiculous this looks, all right? So, for reference, this is the HRRR. The 18Z HRRR that came out earlier on today. This is how much moisture it forecasted for this area. And notice the lack of moisture in the northern extent. Okay? Notice. This is what the wrap says. Some pretty decent moisture. All right? A lot better than what the HRRR says. And yeah, here's the NAM 3 kilometer. There is no such thing as a dry slot, apparently.
It's just not a thing. It's just not going to be a thing.
It's not great. And you want to know something else, chat? All right, you want to see something else that's pretty cool? It's actually not cool at all, but you'll see. All right, so surface space cape. I don't use surface space cape a whole lot for good reason. All right. Actually, we may not want to use surface-based cape. We might want to use... Most unstable is probably better for this demonstration. And we're going to go to... Where is 0Z? There is 0Z. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, most unstable cape. Boundary of about 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram of cape. Here with this North American model. All right. The wrap shows less amount of cape. The GFS shows less amount of cape unless if you go further south, which makes sense. The Euro, it's actually online with around what the NAM 3 kilometer says, believe it or not. But not completely, because the NAM 3 kilometer takes that cape all the way up into Iowa and all the way back around. And because there are storms that form in and around this time, apparently you could get cape that is as high as, what is this number? That is 4,114 joules per kilogram. The answer is no, chat. That's not realistic. That is not. No. Now I'm kind of curious to see what the 850 millibar wind shear is compared to everything. I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have looked.
You didn't see that earlier?
No, sir. So the damn 3 kilometer also has this weird obsession of making things super, super strong. It's not legit.
I cannot wait to see what it puts out for Saturday.
No. This is a no, chat. All right. The wrap, I can see. But this is what the GFS said. This is what the Euro said. The UK Met, for God's sake. All right, the model that we just
for reference, folks. These models that we're talking about have been on it. They are on it, and they are talking. And they are the reason that we have this 30% risk, or excuse me, now it's an enhanced risk for day 3. So much more sophisticated. 30%. I did it again. Enhanced risk with a sig severe hazard, and we're. No,
as I said,
that will not be happening. That will not be happening. That's a good 15 to 20 degrees, not strong.
NAM 3 kilometer is single-handedly the worst model to use thermodynamics and low-level wind shear for. It's just not there. And we'll go the temperatures too. Here's the crazy part. All right, every other model. All right, so the Euro, the GFS, the wrap has temperatures in the low 70s. All right, the NAM 3 kilometer, low 60s. Low 60s. Absolutely just an irrelevant model. No. Just no. No. This thing is not great at all. It is not... Just don't use it. If you're going to forecast, all right, I beg of you, do not use the NAM 3 kilometer. It will save you a lot of pain and a lot of being incorrect. Just no. Just no. And it's only the NAM 3 kilometer. The NAM is good enough for the type of model that it is. It's a low resolution model. It can get away with it. All right. But stuff like this, you see this? This is the significant tornado parameter. I hate using the significant tornado parameter, but everyone uses it because it's all, you know, scary colors and stuff like that. This is not legit. All right. It just, this sounding right here, for those of you who can interpret soundings, is not legit. Okay. Just don't. Don't. This is not legit. Although I will say those lapse rates are pretty bad. So we might have a Mississippi River, Ohio River Delta Dixie style of event. I don't know. That's what the NAM 3 kilometer apparently says. Yeah. For reference, by the way, that's not going to be correct either. The NAM 3 kilometer also wants a little MCS that spins in Arkansas, which it's not entirely wrong, but it spins it way too much tonight. Look at this here, chat.
What time does that have it firing at?
It's already firing.
Okay, there's no thunderstorms north of the Red River. I would like to just blanket that
Okay.
with, so just no. Excuse me. There are some showers.
See this, chat? This is why we don't use the NAM.
No, excuse me, part 2. Those are not showers. That was Norman radar picking up high clouds in the Fort Smith viewing region. There is no rain. That is not true.
Anyways, the point being is, chat, the NAM 3 kilometer is stupid. It's stupid. You're confused? What does the slight risk box thingy mean? Besides your name, it stands for how long you've been a part of the stream for, or been a member for. So you've been a member for 2 months now. So thank you. I appreciate it. How's Noonan looking for Friday through Sunday? Friday, you're fine. Saturday, you might get stuff the real late hours overnight. We'll see. We're going to have another stream tomorrow night to be able to answer that definitively. Sunday, you guys will probably see severe weather in the early morning hours. Maybe even a little bit further to the east. Or further later on in the day as well. But yeah, stupid model. We are getting close, chat. We are at hour 38 at the HRRR run. That takes us to... What is this? We're at 39 now. 15Z, so that's 10 in the morning. And there we go. So that'll be interesting. Let's go back to the wrap. Let's take a look at the northern mode of severe weather. Show you guys the line as it pushes on through from 21Z and onwards. So, once again, a lot of strong damaging winds are going to be moving on through into portions of Iowa, heading into eastern Iowa. This line will eventually continue to move on through. It potentially could get into areas like Rockford and Chicago overnight. It could potentially do that. I'll take a look at the North American model, the low-resolution version of it, see if it does. And yeah, it says it possibly could sometime around midnight, so maybe some strong damaging winds could be associated with that. Can't rule out the chance for a spin-up tornado, but it kind of just seems... As I said, if you're north of St. Louis, or if you're north of Quincy, it kind of seems more like a damaging wind risk more than anything. But we'll have, once again, a little bit more clarification as to what we could be looking at once the HRRR finishes with its rendering here. But yeah, it looks like heading into Saturday morning, could potentially even see some residual showers and thunderstorms that try to move on through into Ohio. We're talking sometime around 8 in the morning. And then even Sunday here, heading into Saturday into Sunday overnight, got some showers and thunderstorms that could be moving on through over there as well. And then I want to show you guys down here, really the main risk, which is Saturday. As I said, absolutely do believe Saturday is going to be the strongest risk for severe weather here. By the way, Will Beavers with the Spout Spotter, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you becoming a member and a supporter of the channel. We'll show you guys here the NAM 3 kilometer, or not the NAM 3 kilometer, the NAM 12 kilometer. And you can see here at 18Z, there are some storms that form across the general area. Some of which could be over in portions of Tennessee, others could be into portions of Mississippi or Louisiana. But this general area right here is where we're going to watch. And you can see storms continue to move off towards the east. You know what, chat? There's only been a couple of times in which I've seen a well-defined supercell on the North American model, the 12-kilometer version. That's a That's a supercell in the middle of Mississippi. And yeah, when the North American model says that, that might be a good time to pay attention.
Hey Nate, I have an
Yeah.
interesting tidbit for you.
Yep.
Um, remember what I said earlier about how moisture would probably get better as runs went along?
Uh-huh.
I would like you to go compare the 18 and 0ZH triple R's dew points at 18Z.
I'll take a look at
Yes,
it
it is
here in a
more.
sec.
I'm sorry, I haven't been answering chat because I'm working away on my 10-page paper. But yes, it is me. Hi, good to see y'all. I've been very busy. Nate's probably told you that.
Yeah, Morgan's been working his tail off over at OU. So yeah. But yeah, it's the North American model could be some supercells. Just somewhere over here could see some pretty significant weather. Let's just start with that. Let's just start with that. All right. I'm not going to pull up soundings from the North American model because it's only going to be just more of a tease. But yeah. Farmer Matt with the tornado tracker. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that as well. Thank you. Thank you. Believe it or not, we just we'll talk about Illinois and Missouri and Iowa here again. We just talked about that area a couple of minutes ago, but we will talk about it here again really soon because
Nate, bump my audio a few decibels. They're saying I'm quiet.
You're quiet. There you go. Try now.
That's probably going to be a little bit better.
Maybe a little bit. But
I know I don't frequently talk quiet, folks, so it shouldn't have been that bad, but you know.
Yeah. We're at hour 44. All right, let's do what Morgan said. Let's go compare
Hour 42 you want because
yeah, hour 42. Compare model compare model trend loop. We're going to want to do regional Ohio Valley. Do I look at any analogs?
No.
Yes and no. I don't like analogs. Analogs, I feel like people rely on it too much as a crutch. It kind of goes along with climatology too. I believe that analogs can give us an idea of what can happen in the future, but not an exact idea. And so, in turn, what I've just done is I've just learned how to be able to try and figure out what the models tell us and what observations tell us and how that can translate. People compare, I've heard so many people compare every single year for the past 5 years to 2011 over and over again to the point to where it's just gotten stale, and I just haven't really cared for analogs anymore. All right, so here's your comparison from your 18Z run that was earlier on today. That was at about 2 Eastern, 1 Central. And here's the latest rendition of the HRRR, and my goodness, take a look at that. There's a lot more moisture here, chat. There's a lot more moisture. There's some higher amounts of dew points over here in the portions of southern Illinois as well. And it actually looks like, yeah, so you do have some higher amounts of dew points over here in eastern Arkansas that starts to creep up as well. So this area right here, once again, very interesting. Yeah, I heard people compare Friday to March 31st, 2023. I've heard people compare it to some other events, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Genuinely, I just did not want to hear it. I did not want to hear it. Michael with the 2, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Says, this is for Morgan. I stole it. ... Jeez. Anyways, so yeah, that's the comparison here. It looks like the model is uptrending the amount of moisture that we have here for Friday. And what that means is that some of this moisture could move on further towards the north. It could be blown towards the north, which means some of the storms that could be in the northern end of the risk could actually be a little bit stronger if this moisture is taken advantage of. So, really interesting there. We are getting very close here, chat. Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting to the HRRR. And it is at this point to where we are going to just start putting up the reflectivity. And we're just going to let it go. We are at frame 47. 18Z, 19Z, 20Z, 21Z. Storms start to form in southwestern portions of Iowa. So that is about 4 p.m. Central. 22Z, 23Z. Look at that. Storms start to form in northern portions of Missouri as well. But it's kind of a broken line. It's also a kind of pretty skinny line, too. So very interesting with that. This line will eventually move off further towards the northeast as well. And eventually these storms will likely be pretty substantial damaging wind makers as Morgan makes the face of all time, likely reacting to...
Look at... No, not even. There's nothing forming on reflectivity at that point because I don't think that's really going to be the time that anything happens. Look at those short waves everywhere.
I want to take a look
everywhere.
I want to take a look at the response too. You know what? I think I know why stuff doesn't form as much in that area, even with the short waves. Take a look at the mixed layer cape.
Yeah, I know it's suffering.
It is suffering.
I don't know what's up with the moist. So I talked about how it got better. And then it just kind of sits there for 3 hours with persistent southerlies. That seems unlikely to me.
Personally. Well, you know what? It looks to me as if the dew points get marginally better, but it's also getting choked off by the EML aloft at 700 millibars, according to the sounding. So there might be a pretty enlarged capping inversion that could exist. All right, the final frame has came in, chat. Let's take a look at what the final frame of the HRRR said. That is an embedded QLCS storm / spin-up tornado threat that could potentially form in northern Missouri. Interesting. So it believes that there could potentially be... Let's zoom in here into Missouri. Timings, top left-hand portion of the screen here, you can see 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So storms here according to the HRRR, and of course for tomorrow's video at 9 a.m. we're gonna have the 6Z HRRR up and running for you guys to look at. 1 p.m. 3 p.m. now. Spotty storms. 4 p.m. 5 p.m. Some storms try to form across here. Nothing in southeastern Missouri quite yet though. And then they form into more of a line. And it starts to extend further down to the south. I wonder if later on, when we take a look at the 6Z HRRR in tomorrow's video, which, as I said, have post notifications on if you can. Hit that notification bell next to the subscribe button. I wonder if this line will continue to extend further down to the south. And this probably could become an overnight severe threat. Maybe some storms form off in this environment in front of the line. Let's take a look at what Morgan was talking about with the isobars. Because the isobars, I do think... See you, Farmer Matt, by the way. Appreciate it. I really want to see... Yeah, you do have some short waves there. I'll tell you what. Yeah. So, you see how these lines kind of swivel like this, chat? See this here? So this is an indication of pressure differential, all right, which could also be accompanied with vorticity. Now we have our typical short wave right here on the dry line, which is where those strong thunderstorms that could become more of your damaging wind QLCS storms will more than likely form. Right on this dry line right here, all right, right in this area, there more than likely will be some storms that will form. I think my prediction for the next HRRR run, the 6Z run, that line will more than likely extend further down to the south. It more than likely will. All right. Especially with how sharp these pressure gradients are, you can see the big dip down. That is a clear-cut indication that there will more than likely be some activity in that area that will extend. Now, whether or not everything else will be favorable for some evolved development, let's say storms that could eventually end up becoming more than supercellular and become significant, that's going to be a big question that we're going to probably have to answer come the 6Z run in tomorrow's video. But you can clearly see the dip in the isobars indicating some enhanced vorticity along this axis. You can clearly see it. It's all aligned right in here. But I wonder if these little waves out here, you can see just a little teeny bit of waves over here along the Mississippi River from St. Louis down to Cape Girardeau. I wonder if something could be of interest over there. I also wonder over here in Arkansas. You can see as we get into 4 p.m. and 5 p.m., we also have this over here too in Jonesboro. See this? This is absolutely an indication of a disturbance right within here and some enhanced vorticity. So could something form over here in the portions of Arkansas as well? In northeastern Arkansas. And that's actually where a lot more of your moisture resides too. So maybe some prefrontal activity could exist over there as well.
It's entirely plausible that after we get another suite of a 48-hour run that we see something like that start to take shape with more storms firing along that southern portion of the line in Missouri, like you mentioned, and then with that band of showers that moves up, which is evident of the confluence that we are probably going to be expecting moving north with the southerlies aiding moisture return, that we see some storms fire there as well.
I mean, because you can clearly see here, chat. You can clearly see the dip. And you can clearly see the dew points racing off towards the north, too. We can play the loop here from 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at how quickly they're moving to the north. So you're going to have some pretty moist dew points and upwards of the low 60s. That's what we want to look for some sustained severe weather, is these blues here. So once this kind of gets into this environment, we probably could be talking about some of that. Have a good night, Jordan. Hope your night goes well. Pyro with the 2, thank you so much, really appreciate it. Says we need a Morgan hairline reveal now. The answer to that probably is no.
My hair's fine, it's just messy. So I refuse right now. I'll be back.
Oh boy. I want to take a look at Iowa. We'll take a look at the reflectivity first for Iowa. See what we got from that. So that is just some scattered storms in the early morning. 3 p.m., 4 p.m., So yeah, this is where the storms really start to kind of form off at around 4 p.m. So the good news is, I guess, chat, is I don't have to take off early for work if I really don't want to. Because I get off of work at 3 Central. That would be convenient. That would definitely be convenient. Line starts to really expand here. It passes Des Moines, Ames, and Fort Dodge by the time we get into the early evening hours. And then we're talking Mason City, Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City. It looks like East Central and Southeastern Iowa could probably see the strongest severe weather activity from this. You can see it is definitely a lot more concentrated down here, according to this model run. This will likely continue to be the case as it heads towards Davenport. It'll probably start to get near the Davenport area based off of this trajectory sometime around 9 or 10. And we'll have a lot more of these answers in tomorrow's video, of course. Tomorrow morning's video at 9 Eastern. Because this is where the HRRR model actually ends, right here. This is the final frame of the HRRR. I know, what a cliffhanger. But you can clearly see this is a pretty well-defined line, pretty strong bit of wind that starts to move about. I don't know if this will be a derecho. I don't know. Morgan, do we know when the NSSL model runs?
I don't off the top of my head because I don't pay attention.
I was going to say, because they are the experimental. Using the MPAS core and the HRRR initial conditions.
That's a good question. I don't know.
If it makes everyone else feel better, by the way, the NAM 3 kilometer is running. I am not staying up for that, chat. There is no chance. What I will say, though, chat, here, is the storms will end up forming tomorrow night. They more than likely will head off towards the Chicago area. It might be a lot weaker by the time it gets there, though. Might be a lot weaker. But it does look like a lot of these storms will push off. They will head over into eastern Iowa, into northern Illinois. Sometime around or before midnight is my best guess. Is there a tool that shows possibilities for a derecho? Thought I used it last year. I'm not sure if it's on Pivotal. I don't remember using it, at least. Yes, I did see the 0Z NAM is running. But yeah, that's the general idea of what's happening here with the new HRRR run. We're going to be doing this again tomorrow night, by the way. We're going to be doing this again tomorrow night for the 0Z HRRR. So at 8:30 Eastern, we're going to be going live again. And we'll be reacting to the HRRR as it happens with other models that we'll be describing as well. So make sure you hit that notification bell, as well as the fact that we're going to have our video tomorrow morning. I'm going to keep promoting this video because as we get closer to this event, we're going to be getting all sorts of information and all sorts of answers for you guys, because we want to make sure everyone knows what's going on with these storms. Is there any more moisture coming up into the northern mode? We're still pretty dry. So let's take a look at the NAM for that just a little bit more, because the HRRR, it ended right at 7 p.m. Central for its forecast. But the NAM, it looks like the northern mode for Iowa, it'll just pretty much have what it has. This is kind of the amount of moisture that you have here. About mid 50s, maybe upper 50s in some localized areas. And then it actually looks like it starts to really drop off once you get into the evening hours. Once you get into the evening, it starts to drop off out in front of it. Don't worry too much about this right here. This is all just because the storm took up a lot of this moisture. So focus on everything that's out in front of the differential. And you can see this doesn't have, this is a lower amount of moisture. These areas start to drop a little bit. So moisture does still seem to be, it's kind of moist, but it's not as moist as you typically would look for some severe weather. What are the SigTor analogs looking like? I'm not an analog type guy, to be honest with you, simply because I feel like, number one, analogs are a good tool to figure out what could potentially happen, or the general idea of what, not potentially happen, I should say, but the general idea of what has happened in the past and how that could relate to this event. But I'm more of the type of guy that just looks at what the models are saying and go into that more in depth specifically, because I would rather kind of just formulate my own opinion with that, which is the reason why I don't use analogs. I look at analogs, it helps kind of, compare, but at the end of the day, this event is its own event. I've heard so many people compare Friday to March 31st, 2023, or December 15th, 2021. I've heard some people compare Saturday to April 27th, and I'm just like, just stop, please. It's, I kind of hate when that happens. But that's just kind of me. Meridian, Mississippi Saturday is going to be in the bullseye for some significant severe weather. That is, I can say with confidence on Saturday, I really do believe that Saturday is going, huh?
Don't say it.
No, I'm not going to say what you think I said, or I'm going to say. I really do believe that we could be looking at a higher end event here on Saturday. Probably the highest event that we could see in probably a good while. So, but yeah, that's kind of what we got here. A lot of moisture is anticipated on Saturday. I mean, look at this. We got some really robust moisture, mid to almost upper 60s. So yeah. What's up, Shell? Nice to see you. Listen, I'm not going to say anything about the pink Sharpie until tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we got to get the high resolution models to be able to understand what could happen. Plus, you could not have a day 3 high risk. It is actually impossible. And I say it is actually impossible because it is literally impossible. Shall we take a look, chat? Look at this here, chat, real quick. Open image in new tab. Okay. Day 1 probability outlook. Oh, this is day 1. I need...
It's a mesoscale discussion for California.
Look at this here, chat. This is the maximum amount of stuff you can get with a day 3 outlook. You can only get a moderate risk. Only get a moderate risk as your ceiling for day 3. All right? Day 2? Day 2 you can get a high risk if you think it's valid. It's the same thing as day one. It's the same probabilities as day one. And for those of you who may not be able to interpret this, basically it's saying for a certain probability of each hazard, all right? Certain probability for each hazard. What does that correlate to what risk it is? All right. So let's say a 15% chance for tornadoes, just a regular 15% chance. That would be an enhanced risk for enhanced risk in general. All right. But it would be a slight risk if that was the only risk issued. All right. If it was for hail or for wind. All right. So that's what it's saying. So you can follow that all the way down. You can have a 60% chance with significant severe all the way. Sorry for blinding everyone. 60% chance for significant severe for hail. 60% chance with significant severe. And it would never be high. It would always be moderate. And the same thing applies for day one. It's the same thing. If you want to be able to take a look at that specifically, if you go to the convective outlook on the Storm Prediction Center, you could be able to see right below the time, but right above the actual outlooks, there's a hyperlink right there. It says probabilistic to categorical outlook conversion table. You can click that, and then boom. When was the last 60 sig tour? A while ago.
Not a question to be asking at this point in time.
Let's put it this way. I'm confident enough to say that probably will not happen on Saturday. I'm confident enough to say that. I'm pretty, I'm pretty animated about Saturday, but a 60% sig, it definitely doesn't seem like it's that. As I said, I'm not an analog person, so I can't remember the last 60 sig tour risk. But we carry on. We carry on. All right. 0Z NAM has run past 24 hours. There is an abundance of moisture on Thursday. Oh my goodness. I'll tell you what, leading into Friday, how different is that compared to the previous runs of the NAM? That is a major uptrend over the past 12 hours. Okay.
Oh no.
Well, it seems as if most of Arkansas,
me go look.
At 6Z on Friday morning, much of Arkansas is covered in 60-degree dew points. Now, the NAM 3 kilometer, we're not going to touch. We're not going to touch. But that is just monitoring trends as we get closer and closer to the event. It is very interesting to see that models are starting to trend a little bit more moist south of where the main risk could potentially be. What are my thoughts on the CS?
Silly Goose says we're not gonna touch the NAM 3K, but same time, the NAM's dew points right now are actually better than the 3Ks had in the last run. But I rest my case.
So the NAM 3 kilometer just ruins everything else, so we're not touching it.
It makes your day not fun.
No, it does not. What are my thoughts on the CSU learning machine model? I used to use it in the very beginning, and now it's starting to get on my nerves. Now it's starting to get on my nerves because people are using it instead of forecasting for themselves, and it's kind of lazy.
It is the pinnacle of weather Twitter. How do I get people to interact with my tweet? And some people, I say this incorrectly. Sorry, excuse me. Some people use it with blankets or precursors of, hey, this doesn't make any sense, or this shouldn't be relied on as a forecast. But here's this. That I'm okay with, but just taking in a vacuum saying, oh, look at this. Unhelpful, not informative, pushing the wrong message, not a forecast. Not good. Just not good.
Yeah. It just... Sorry. Just cannot. I just cannot.
I think I need a chiropractor.
You might need something at the end of this.
Something
You're going to need something after the end of your chase. When you're done on Friday and then on Saturday...
Help me.
As I said, chat, he's going to be a spotter for us this weekend. So he'll call in and he'll give us information on what he's seeing out in the field. He'll also give us some pictures or videos or even some live feeds if his service will allow him to. And
in some places it shouldn't be that bad.
I guess it'll have to depend upon where you're at. But yeah, I mean, as I said.
If I'm up by Jonesboro or something like that tomorrow, that should be pretty decent.
Yeah, you should be fine if you're in Jonesboro. But we'll see where the weather takes you. The point being is he is going to be helping us out by giving us some ideas as to what's happening over here. How concerned am I on the concernometer?
While you contemplate your answer to that question, I'm just going to say the 12K and the 3K are almost exactly in agreement with dew points at 6C.
That's kind of crazy. For Friday?
For Friday.
Mm-hmm. On the concernometer, I'm at a 5 on Friday. The 5. It's kind of like a half and half. It's an enhanced risk. It's just like one of those. It could be more, it could be less, but there's still like not as much stuff. For Saturday, I'm gonna be honest, chat. I'm at a 7.5. I'm at a
7.5.
I'm at a 7.5 out of 10. And depending upon what our stream says tomorrow night. Yeah, I hate saying the word concern. I hate saying the word concern. Morgan, you've known me.
Said it in the Day 4 Outlook. They said it verbatim.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Find it.
I know they said it. I know they said it. But you've known me for 5 years, and how many times have I said concerned on stream? I don't say it. I hate saying it. I hate saying it. I do. But Saturday is truly it depending upon what happens tomorrow night with the model runs, it's
trouble.
It's not looking great. It looks like trouble. And then Sunday I'm at a 4. That's for right now. We still gotta wait for some dominoes. We still gotta wait for some dominoes to fall. But I'm literally in the 15% risk, and I'm at a 4. You know, it's just maybe a 3.
On second thought.
On second thought, maybe a 3. Like I just am not. We'll have to see what the models say, but it's just it is what it is. I am not going to chase on Sunday, by the way. I am either going to stream here at the desk, which I more than likely will, or I'm going to go play hockey because I have a hockey game on Sunday. But that's how I feel.
Ooh, that's a good point that I didn't actually think about. What's the HRRR at for wind gusts tomorrow or Friday? Excuse me. In terms of like a fire danger.
Right.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot of wind. The Texas Panhandle is going to be under an extreme. It might already be.
For tomorrow? Holy crap. What are some of this off of the mountains over here in southern Colorado and New Mexico? What is the 83 mile an hour wind gusts, 70 mile an hour wind gusts in the northern Texas Panhandle?
Folks, no burning, no sparks, no
Do
cigarette butts. Find an appropriate place for them that is not the ground. If you're in that area along I-40 from the Texas Panhandle east, and really across the entirety of the Southern Plains, it's going to be just a messy situation, very volatile situation. Wind gusts increase with eastward extent as you get later on into the afternoon on Friday. That'll be into the 60 to 70 mile an hour range also for western Missouri and Kansas and eastern Kansas as well on the backside of that dry line. So it's just you need to be proactive, not reactive. In this instance, is something that I would like to, something that I like to say, and just avoid. Bad idea.
Hey, Morgan.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen this, like, or at least paid attention to this before. It's probably I've never paid attention. Did you know that if you look at fire weather on surface and precipitation, and you look at vertically integrated smoke, you can see the model actually try to predict wildfires?
yes. Why do I know that? Because I used it when I was blanketed when we were blanketed in smoke in summer of 23,
I,
spring of
I
23.
I had no clue.
My mouse just died. No.
Apparently, they really have a big idea of some big wildfires over here in Mississippi and Louisiana. There's gonna be. All right, I'm gonna be honest here, chat. I think there probably could be more wildfires over here in the portions of Oklahoma and Texas. I think this model.
You cannot forecast human mistakes. That's just
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the best way to put it right there. You cannot forecast human mistakes.
you
Uh,
cannot forecast the collective stupidity of some people sometimes.
yes, absolutely. So, but yeah, just very dry. I'm curious to see what the relative humidity in some of these areas. Relative humidity when the strong wind pushes on through. How dry does it get? That is 11%. That is 9%. Yeah, that is
9?
9% as a relative
That's
humidity.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I see a lot of 15s, 13s, 12s. I see 9. That is very low. That is dry. That is 8% near like Lubbock. So that is dry. A lot of wildfire activity possible over here. So yeah, watch out for that. And someone also made a good point in chat too of how down power lines could also start wildfires too.
Yeah, and I will say from here at least, we had a wind event move through a week or two ago, into the night, and we were getting upwards of, I'd say, about 45, 50 mile an hour wind gusts, and the power never went out, but it definitely flickered a bunch of times. And the other thing to consider with that is that was at night. So you're getting the strong winds during the day in excess of 60, 65 miles per hour. Power lines are going to fall and they're going to be in the bright sunshine, and any loose sparks could catch. That's a fantastic point. I don't know who made that in chat. But that is something to consider as well. And regardless, we say this during severe weather as well when we're thinking about flooded roadways and we're thinking about severe weather impacts. We say never avoid wires that are, or excuse me, never approach wires that are down. You don't know if they're live or not. You don't know if the water around them is perhaps carrying some of that electrical current. So it's just something to consider with that really throughout the entire day on Friday. If a power line goes down in your area, report it to your electrical company, report it to the authorities, and avoid. Do not go near it. No. What are the soundings that are on your screen?
I'm just taking soundings because what I do chat sometimes, whenever I don't vocalize what I look at, and this is sometimes what I do almost every single day. Like before videos, I just start clicking stuff in and around, and I just start taking soundings of random places. I try to get an idea of the
It's just
environment.
clicking the buttons.
Right.
And that NAM environment for what is that?
That is central
What is that?
northeastern Arkansas.
That is insanely streamwise.
Yeah.
And do
That's
me a solid. Do me a solid. Take a sounding in the Mark Twain Forest at 0Z Saturday. It is
Mark Twain Forest is what, Boot Heel?
Missouri. Yeah, up there, right about there.
Well, the latest frame just came in, so there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Not great. Now, again, consider, folks, this might be a little bullish on the moisture return. We know that. But as of right now, I would kind of use this as a guidance of here's what will happen if the moisture does get better across short range, more high resolution guidance. Because, folks, this storm system means business, and I think honestly, regardless of whether or not moisture return makes it up as far as we think it will, you're going to get a forced line segment that's going to be capable of producing 70 or 80-mile-an-hour winds easily, regardless of any kind of tornado threat that develops about south of St. Louis, I'd call it. So
I'm going to start cherry picking.
Consider lots and lots of different details there.
That's not legit. That is some NAM stuff right there. That is some NAM stuff right there. That is not.
That's kind of what I was talking about.
That is some NAM stuff right there. I want to take a look at southeastern. Oh, that's not terrible. That's if storms can form down there. Alma with the Weather Watcher, thank you so much. Really do appreciate you for being here for as long as you have. That is a long time that you've been a member here. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate your support.
Threat continues till about 10, 11 o'clock, it looks like.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed. The trend with the upper level wind shear as it starts to die down, as it heads into the overnight hours, the overall threat starts to drop down too. But I'm still interested here.
Because it starts to diverge a little too much. And I also think it has something to do with the cold front advancing so far out with eastward extent and the trough building in behind it, probably messing with the shear directions.
So peak with this event here on Friday will likely be around 7 to 8 o'clock, maybe give or take an hour.
Sunset, we can safely call it about that.
I want to take a look.
A little bit later.
I'm going to get into something interesting here, chat. I'm going to be eyeballing our capping inversion by only looking at the 850. Actually, no, it'd be 700 millibar temperature, height, and wind. 18Z, 12Z, that is an inversion, but there's 2 layers to this inversion. You can clearly tell this is an inversion out here because if I take a sounding, you can see above 850 millibars, your temperature gets very close to this dotted line. This red line gets really close. That is an inversion. But it looks like there's 2 layers of inversion here. Yeah, absolutely there is. There is 2 layers of inversion here.
So you want to know what that might help with? You're talking about southward extent at this point, right? With that environment. It's going to help keep things discreet.
That's if things, well...
If they form, yes. But if you've got supercellular structure forming with that potent of a wind environment, forcing forcing the issue for these storms to develop and intensify, you have that cap holding it back from still an environment with 1,500 up to probably 2,000 cape in very isolated areas. You're holding that back from just totally blowing up.
Well, and on the other hand, too, as well, as you head further on into the night, it makes more sense why the event starts to dissipate more and more. Because as you start to lose your upper level wind shear, your bulk shear, if you will, storms lose a way of sustaining, which means that capping inversion will then begin to actually eat away at the storm more and start to weaken it further. So,
Oh my goodness gracious.
oh my goodness gracious.
Just, I don't care if you take it with a grain of salt or even less
You're
than that.
you're looking at the NAM 3 kilometer, aren't you?
You absolutely need to look at it. It's
No,
unfathomable. It's unfathomable, dude.
I don't want to look
You
at
need
the
to.
NAM.
I don't.
It
care
is
if you
the
want to.
worst model ever.
500 meters squared per second squared of 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative velocity is calling your name. Man.
You're really making me do it, aren't you?
Do it for iPyro if he's still in chat.
You had to. You had to, huh? Double checking here, by the way, with the northern event. 1,500 joules per kilogram of ML cape, mixed layer cape. That's not bad, and it veers. I know it's the North American model, but it veers. It also has a little bit of inversion aloft.
Veers.
It veers. It is cold core. Avoid the NAM 3 kilometer religiously. I avoid it religiously for just not making forecasts. I look at it for memes. Memes are good. But mixed layer cape for Friday, please. Well, it does get... That's actually a lot more mixed layer cape than it was before. Not too much more, but the northward extent does exist. Our bulk shear is probably going to be pretty decent. Once again, bulk shear is looking at thunderstorm sustainability. Anything that starts to get into the pinks, that's when you could start to see storms. If storms form in that area, that is favorable for thunderstorm sustainment. What did I just see? Oh no, chat. I really am going to have to look at the reflectivity, aren't I? It carved through the bulk shear. What is this? Is that a supercell that tries to form in southeastern Missouri? Chat, this model is the dumbest thing alive! I hate it. I genuinely hate it. Anyways. Well, there's your wind event as it heads north. It looks like once you get towards the border of Minnesota and Iowa, the line starts to break apart. So it'll probably just be a lot of gusty winds. The actual line of storms, the wind, it does start to move off towards the east. You know, it might not be that far off to say that even the 6Z HRRR may not be able to show the line getting to Chicago quite yet. It might be like right before Chicago before it actually gets there, which means the folks that might actually want to know what's happening in Chicago might not know until the live stream tomorrow night at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern that we'll have. Once again, talking about the models. Does the NAM 3 kilometer have any real value or purpose? It is a model that helps give us an idea as to where stuff could be. But don't look too much into it because the ceiling is not the actual ceiling. Well, it looks like the line starts to lose traction as it heads east, so that's good. But there is some embedded supercells or some spin-ups that could be possible once you head off in northeastern Missouri, western and central Illinois, and maybe even northern Illinois and southeastern Iowa as well. So you know what? You know what, chat? My early thoughts, because this isn't the only model that has said this in general. I really do think that southeastern Iowa and northeastern Missouri could really see a lot of strong damaging winds and some spin-up tornadoes. I think if you were to ask me right now, chat, what the Storm Prediction Center could be thinking about, all right, and what risks they could put out, I think it could be possible that they could see at minimum a 5% chance for tornadoes to probably even a 10 toward. I'm not sure about the SIG. SIG, we'll have to see as we get closer to the event. But I do think at minimum a 5 tour here is warranted for this area. A 5% chance for tornadoes within a 25-mile radius. That's what I'm thinking right off the top of my head. Sometimes Darth Vader, but it fully depends. In this case, I don't think it would matter.
It's actual. Are you kidding me?
You're in northwestern Louisiana. Are we going to have bad weather tonight that you need to be worried about? You're going to be getting some thunderstorms that'll be moving on through, but it's not going to be anything worse than what it is that you've faced if you've already had some storms already. Yeah, like these storms are pretty pitiful right now. I'll be honest with you. So I don't think you'll really be seeing a whole lot. You might see some thunder, might see some lightning, might see some damaging winds, but it's not really going to be anything more than what it's doing right now. Yes, Saturday is definitely the main day to watch. The good news is that the NAM 3 kilometer did not print supercells in southeastern Missouri. I would have absolutely flipped if it did, but thank God it didn't. Back up to Chicago. Yeah, it looks like the line approaches the area right at midnight or a little bit after midnight. So a lot of damaging winds here from areas near St. Louis and north of St. Louis towards south central to southeastern Iowa to southern Wisconsin, all the way through into west central and central Illinois and maybe even northern Illinois. And the HRRR showed that for at least northeastern Missouri and southeastern Iowa, that would be the case as well, where that would be some strong damaging winds. So I definitely think that would be the main case right there. I do think we probably could be seeing that there at least on Friday. So a lot of strong damaging winds at least here. All right. We're getting close to it. And then after the NAM is giving me an idea of what's happening on Saturday, we're going to end this stream.
Good, because I need to lock in on this paper.
What is going on?
Hello? Okay.
No way!
Okay.
The storms in the boundary from the previous night actually does hamper the northern extent of Mississippi. It's an outflow boundary. That's what the NAM picks up.
Yeah, 12-kilometer model picking up an outflow boundary. Right. I'm a no on that one, but
actually,
we'll
know what?
see.
No, I take that back. I take that back. It's not a boundary. It's not the outflow boundary. It's a low that's forming. It's a legit meso low that's forming in northwestern Mississippi. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Holy Columbus, Mississippi.
And I'll tell you what, that is some moist dew points. That is a lot of disturbance here with our isobars. Our isobars is fluctuating like crazy. Absolutely.
Really unstable, and it's not going to go untapped either.
Okay. Well, that is wonderful.
That's not good. not an ideal situation. Jeez.
How's Mixed Layer Cape doing? Well, ouch. I will say the NAM 3 kilometer and the NAM overdo Cape just a little bit. They do overdo it just a little bit. But, yeah, we do have some buoyancy that's over in some of these areas. Wow. We're going to wait for 2 more frames. We're going to wait for 2 more frames. We're going to wait for frame 72, which will be the 0Z.
So I'm now intrigued. Because it forms a mesolo.
Yup.
What does that look like for 500 millibar wind shear? Oh my gosh, that's a giant... No.
You know what? That's kind
Disagree. Disagree.
It does kind of make sense.
Thanks.
It does kind of make sense because that's actually how low pressure systems form.
That is a giant.
But it creates a gape in the upper level wind shear. That is
a shortwave that's crashed into by another shortwave that creates a low because they start spinning on each other. That's inspiring.
Oh. What?
Oh my gosh.
Hold up, chat.
So you're telling me the risk starts at 15Z and goes to 3Z? Off. Yikes. See, folks, this is why Nate said his concern level was at a 7.5. Because you have a mix of an incredible parameter space with strong southerlies because of a mesolow forming, which means moisture return into the region. As it stands, there is not a way this goes right for the people that are in the line of impact of this risk. What is 3K up to?
I'm now at a 7 for Saturday. Just based off of this singular NAM run. The open warm sector is not as open of a warm sector. It's essentially consolidated to Mississippi. And the only way it moves into Alabama is if it's an overnight risk. Although I will say northwestern Alabama near the mesolow might be kind of cooking, but we'll see.
I don't think the
mesolow should be taken too seriously right now, though. I don't think it should. We're still pretty far out. But the open warm sector, and with some of the surface winds that I'm seeing, like some of these surface winds, if a mesolow does form, then southwestern Missouri is going to be as linear as you can possibly get it because flow is going to be coming from the southwest. So that's parallel to the upper level wind shear, which means...
Excuse me, southwestern Mississippi?
Southwestern Mississippi, yeah.
You said Missouri, I think.
If I did say Missouri, unfortunate.
You did.
Mississippi.
I just replayed it on stream.
Well,
Well done.
Southwestern Mississippi. Because winds are all moving parallel to the boundary and parallel to the upper level wind shear. So the only way you would need to be able to get winds that would be fairly streamwise and tornadic would be if you had southerlies or southeasterlies. The only way you get that is in Alabama or on the border of Mississippi, which, once again, Waynesboro. Sound familiar, Morgan? Place that always gets tornadoes. It really needs a sky camera at this point. It really does. Thank you all, by the way, for over 300 likes on the live stream. I appreciate you guys. I need to see a better open warm sector. I need to see cooler temperatures aloft into portions of Alabama, because right now it's a little toasty.
The NAM has a tendency, I will add, the NAM has a tendency to do this. It has a particular it's got a weird vorticity bias to that it really over deepens anything it sees. So I'm not especially moved by that. It'll be interesting to see if that comes to fruition on short range cams as well, but I wouldn't take it with too large a grain of salt currently.
Yeah, I definitely need dew points to be higher in Alabama. I need dew points to be higher. That's what I need. Just plain and simple. I need dew points to be higher in Alabama in order for me to be back to a 7.5 or even an 8. Because right now, dew points, all it is really is much of Mississippi and western Alabama, as well as portions of Louisiana. That's the risk right here. This is it. This consolidated area right here, that's the risk. It could include portions of southern Tennessee and northwestern Alabama as well. But that's pretty much the main risk that I'm watching. So, we're going to have a video once again, chat, tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. Be there and be square if you're awake at that time. Otherwise, just come on over. See what the models say overnight tonight, as they more than likely will change. And then, of course, we'll have another live stream tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 Central. So if you haven't already, hit that notification bell that just so happens to be right next to the subscribe button. And then we will be live on Friday night covering the significant severe weather that is possible across portions of the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, and the Ozarks. And then we will definitely be live on Saturday. I'll tell you what, we will definitely be live on Saturday. And then Sunday we'll have to see. Once again, a lot of dominoes need to fall before we get towards Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
N8 does stand for Nate. It does, it does. That is stupidly funny. I'm going to cherry pick your once chat just to have some fun. Yeah, that is... You know, I want to say this so bad, but I told this to Morgan already, and I think Morgan... I texted this to him about the last time the NAM gave me a sounding. And I still can't help but think and feel that same feeling. If it continues this pattern here, chat, I'll let you guys know about it tomorrow. But yeah, it's just...
Go enjoy what I sent you in your DMs, and then we'll get out of here.
Yep. Let's take a look. Well, if there's anything that I learned, it's that basically from Columbus, Mississippi, and south is typically the shenanigans. That does make sense. I am not going to show you guys that chat because respectfully,
Nope.
that is not a model. All right, chat.
I gotta lock in.
Yeah, he's got to go finish an essay. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream here tonight. Nice little pleasant surprise. I will say in the future. Okay, so after this after this significant event goes on through, we're gonna be doing something really interesting. A nice little perk for our members. So the day before an event, so like let's say we were next Friday had another significant severe risk, just like this Friday. All right. The night before, that Thursday, we would live stream for the general public. All right. But the day before that, the Wednesday, which would be something like today, we're going to have members only live streams for our initial reaction to the models, the new models that come out, just like we did tonight. It'll be members only. It'll be pretty cool for the people who support us because they are sponsors and they financially support the channel. But you'll be getting the same exact thing one day later, and it'll be a lot closer to the event where we have a lot more answers to what could happen to the event and stuff like that. So, is there a free website like Pivotal Weather which shows all the models? Yeah, Pivotal Weather does it. Tropical Tidbits does it. There's also College of DuPage Meteorology. You just have to go to weather data and the numerical models and then find it that way. But yeah, do that. Are mods able to be in it? I'm not too sure. I have no idea. I haven't tested out a members only live stream. I have not tested it. But yeah, that'll be just something cool for people who financially support it. And yes, we will be streaming on Friday and Saturday. Don't know about Sunday. Still need a lot of dominoes to fall before we figure that out. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I said, I appreciate you guys. Hit that like button down below if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on notifications to stay up to date with all the latest that we provide. That's Morgan up there. It's been a while since he's been here in the stream. He'll be our storm spotter in the field this weekend as he chases these storms.
Probably won't be around for tomorrow night's thing because
I don't think you should.
I'm going to be studying for Saturday.
So. Yeah, he needs to formulate a plan on what he's doing anyways for storm chasing.
I'm going to be meeting with my chase partners, and we're going to be mapping out certain fields, certain routes that are not go. I know of a few already through Mississippi that move to the north and east towards Starkville that are just not good. So it's going to be a lot of that for me tomorrow. I'm just kind of piecing together what is a reasonable method of attack with this. It ain't going to be easy, but we're going to make it work.
Yep, there you go. One final thing before we sign off here. Livid Weather with the Spout Spotter. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your support as well. It really does mean a lot. And yeah. I will catch you guys tomorrow night. We will hear from Morgan, hopefully on Friday, and definitely on Saturday. Please stay safe, everyone. I'll catch you guys tomorrow morning with our video. And, yeah.
You will, not me.
Yeah.
I'll be asleep.
You will be asleep. Peace out.